Hello, beautiful creators. Rebecca here, your vibe mentor, bringing you another video on how to raise your vibration so you can live your best life. Today I wanted to talk to you about intuition versus psychic abilities. Now I know for me, when I was first kind of awakening and trying to figure out, who could help me, and I thought psychics would, have the answers of what am I missing and what do I need to do to try to make my life better and get rid of all of these negative things in my life. And I didn't have any kind of understanding of the difference between a psychic and an intuitive, or the different types of psychics, or where the line is drawn between the two. And so I wanted to bring you a video kind of explaining what I have discovered about both of them, and some different explanations around the types of psychics, or the types of psychic information, I should say, as well as the different types of intuition and where one transitions to the other. And I will just start by saying it's not a clear line, so that's not what I'm going to say. So stick with me to really get a grasp of where I'm going with this. So why intuition and your psychic abilities are important has yet to be fully discovered by the scientific community. It, for a long time, has been considered a taboo topic and something that is dangerous to play with, especially from a religious perspective. So just want to kind of clarify how things are moving along in that realm as far as the perception of psychic abilities. So the definition of intuition is the ability to understand something immediately without the need for conscious reasoning. And I would say the most important piece there is without conscious reasoning. Sometimes for me, intuition will take a little bit. I need to settle down, clear out, get clear, get calm and still, and that's when the information will come. So it's not always immediate, but it is without conscious reasoning, without thinking. It is not a head or a brain process. It is a physical or a heart process more than anything. An interesting study was done with 3,500 executives and senior managers, that 88% of them make their decisions from intuition, which, coming from the corporate world and being told that you have to have analytical, data-driven decisions almost on a daily basis, was very surprising to me that number was so high. And I'm suspecting that while we meaning the I guess I should say the prior me in my past life, we in the corporate world would have to gather all of this data to prove what we already knew was likely to be true. Now, oftentimes you would find new information that sort of steered you in a little bit of a different direction, but I will say that 99.9% of the time my intuition was right, but I would always feel the need to have the data to prove it. And it is a wise decision. Data is not necessarily wrong. But I just found that very interesting that 88% of especially executive managers would admit to, and I'm sure it was probably an anonymous study, but it would admit to using intuition. The Navy also did a study in 2012, which is a long time ago now relative to, this being filmed in 2021, that they started to train their members in their sixth sense so that it could help equip them in battle, so that they would be more aware of what was coming and not just so focused on what we see and what is outside of us, and start to integrate that additional information that really is from the quantum, right? It's not in the physical realm. I know that gosh, I'm going to lose the term now, but remote viewing has also been used by the government, that their manifestation is known in the government. Programming obviously is used in marketing. So all of these things that we call spiritual or woo-woo, there is evidence that it is not only real and viable information, but that some of the major players in our world today are using them. So staying on track with intuition and psychic abilities, Don Tucker Tucker, a psychology professor at the University of Oregon, said that the research that they did in the Navy could improve not only training for the military, but also for sports and job settings. So, this is a prominent man in a very respectable position in the world of psychology, acknowledging that intuition and we'll see that it bridges the gap into psychic abilities are not only real, but very viable solutions for some of our everyday problems. So this is all very common knowledge in the upper echelons of our world. And so we have been led to believe that these are silly things that we shouldn't pay attention to, because that takes our power away and it keeps us in a subservient position where we can continue to be the worker bees for the colony and serve their purposes. And so we want to really try to remove any of that veil so that we can see clearly for ourselves. And that fits appropriately because we'll be talking about the Clairs and how that means Clair, means clear in, I think Latin is the source there. So yes, our hearts take in more information than the brain can. So kind of going back to intuition and I prefer to call them the Clairs because the word psychic just has so much garbage with it. As far as perception. But the information through our intuition and our clairs, I believe, comes through the body. It's a feeling sense or a knowing sense. It's a sense, not necessarily a thinking process. And the Heart Math Institute, have an amazing organization, has done tons of research and has plenty of science and data to back up the fact that the heart actually receives information up to a full second faster than your subconscious mind. So that's not even your conscious mind. So when you get a gut feeling, right, you feel in your heart this is right for you. They've been referred to recently as your second and third brain. Maybe even the heart should be the first brain if it's getting the information first. The body often gets information well before the brain. The brain is sometimes the last to know, and so we have to be really careful with assuming that only cognitive, rational thought is true. We're leaving out vast amounts of information by having that assumption. So I'm going to jump into the different types of intuition now. And before I do that, I just want to preface that all of these different types are emotionally neutral, that our thoughts can sometimes fool us, our emotions can sometimes fool us. We want to be very, very careful to understand that intuition is not emotional. It is not coming from a place of external trigger. Oftentimes the best way for me to know that I'm getting clear intuitive guidance is that it comes in a way that doesn't feel manufactured by myself, where people say it came to me, or I'm hearing, and I don't prefer those terms for myself, but that is also reiterating the sense that it is not of your own, that your brain didn't come up with this, that this is something that was available to you from some other source than your brain. I also find that the first thing that comes to mind, while it's coming to mind, it's coming from somewhere else. That tends to be the most true for me, because it's the first thing that gets thought about and rationalized and justified and twisted and analyzed, and so all of the mucking up happens after that first thought. So really be aware of what the first thought is, the first thing that comes to you, because that's usually the most clear and most accurate. So the different types of intuition, and I'm using a lot of different sources. Some are very scientific based, some are not so spiritual. So there tends to be what I would put into two different buckets, sort of the heart and body intuition, and then the mind intuition. But just to be clear and to share with you everything that I have found out there, I will give the entire list. So the first type is adapted intuition, or a strong hunch, or kind of a gut feeling, right? And that is usually the most common. It's kind of that feeling that you get that you should take a certain action. Again, I feel that is a bodily or heart intuition. The second would be empathic intuition, especially where you want to understand someone's perspective, understand that there usually is a good reason why people do what they do, and then viewing all sides of the story to integrate all of the different possible potentials. And then the next three are kind of more mind-based, where observant intuition, obviously you're observing what's around you and making inferences from there. Analytical intuition, I talked a lot about that. You love research, you got to figure out all the different pieces of the puzzle and compile it, and then decipher from your own place of intuition what is true and appropriate, as well as questioning intuition. And I highly recommend the latter two, just as forms of intelligence, really, that we need to start doing our own research. We need to question everything, and we need to listen to what is our own intuition saying, be discerning, and really try things on and get a sense for how that feels in the body. Does it feel right? Does it feel wrong? And what I started with was the question of what's the difference between intuition and psychic abilities or the clairs. And what I'm finding is that it's very difficult to differentiate. Now, when someone says I'm an intuitive versus I'm a psychic, I do feel that there is more external information available to someone who truly is a psychic versus just an intuitive. That there are certain levels of information, or kind of like with many things, it's a spectrum, and that intuition would be sort of on the entry level of the spectrum. We all have intuition. We all have the ability for the clairs as well, but some people are just really born with these open information centers or information abilities that would put them higher on the end of the spectrum. So I really don't see them necessarily as the same thing. They are similar and on either ends of the spectrum. So the types of clairs, the ones that you hear most commonly, the four types would be the clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, and claircognizance. Clairvoyance being sight. You see videos or images in your mind, a flash of an image or even symbols that kind of spark a thought or spark a knowing. Clairaudience is actually hearing voices, and I have to be very careful because that is very, very different than any psychosomatic issues that would be diagnosed. And I don't want to go down that road, but there is a knowing that these voices are not necessarily to harm you or to harm anyone else, but to help. Clairsentience is feelings, a bodily feeling. You'll find in a lot of my videos, I recommend how does that feel to you, because I'm a feeler. So that's my Clair, if you will. Getting a sense of feeling of what might happen if you've gone into a room or you've connected with a person and you all of a sudden just kind of feel like, have you ever walked into a room and you're like, whoa, what just happened here? That is a leftover, a remnant of energy that was left behind from the previous people in the situation. And so having that clairsentience ability would be more in tune to those types of situations or people. Claircognizance is a knowing, just knowing without any external validation. And it's not a I think I know, but there is just a deep sense of this is fact. I know it to be true beyond all shadow of a doubt. Zero evidence is available to me, and I don't need it because I just know that this is truth. And that would be claircognizance. The other three less commonly spoke of, and I would say less commonly interacted with from my experience. I meet less people who speak about these experiences or abilities, if you will, would be clair empathy. Again, it's very similar to clairsentience, but it's a greater focus on people and empathizing, and it very much borders on being empathic, right? And just understanding the emotions of people and what they need to heal or feel better. Clairtangency is touch. Some people feel, an arm on or a hand on their shoulder, or a brush on their arm, any touch or sensation from what seems to be an external experience, but there is no other person or environmental stimulus to cause that. And then clairalience, or smell. I've been in meditation and all of a sudden smelled roses. It's a beautiful feeling. Sometimes people smell their grandfather's cologne or their grandmother's cooking. It's usually related to some experience or some feeling that you've had in the past, or that is wanting to be shared with you. So there are the different types. I know it's a complex topic. Like I said, we all have these abilities. We all have them available to us. If you're looking to sharpen those abilities, you know what? I'm sorry, I missed one. Taste. Clairsentience is as well. Taste. So very similar to smell, but it would be just the same thing. Tasting alcohol, tasting your grandmother's food. So yes, if you want to sharpen your abilities and you want to experience more of these, certainly intuition is the place to start if you don't feel very intuitive, and then branching out into the more higher end of the experience. But first would be listening to your inner voice. Like I said, remember the first thing that comes to you is likely the most pure thought. Practicing mindfulness, again, we'll say this often, meditation has so many benefits, and this is the absolute number one most important thing you have to do if you want to sharpen any of your intuitive or psychic abilities. Decluttering your mind, calming your nervous system, finding stillness. And as you practice meditation, over time, you'll start to realize that your mind gets quieter and quieter. And there even comes a point where it's like being able to flip a switch, like you've turned the light switch off, where you can literally shut down the thinking brain. And it can only happen through practice and exercise, just like any other muscle. You have to go to the gym every day. Make it a practice. Getting out of the mind means you're tapping into flow, and that information that's available outside of us can only happen when we are flowing. And so when we get out of the mind, into the body, into the present moment, that's when we can stay in the flow and really feel a sense of guidance, intuition, and support. Embracing solitude is key, and I'm not suggesting cutting people out of your life or remaining in hermit mode forever. Just make time regularly, once a day, once a week, whatever you can do to spend time in silence. We are electromagnetic beings. We have electromagnetic fields around us. It's been said anywhere from 6 to 26 feet, maybe even greater. I heard that was just the extent of the machine that was measuring it, so it could go even farther. But the point is, when you're around people, you're constantly taking in more information, and being in proximity to people will give your body more information to process. So being alone and in solitude for a time, a small amount of time is enough, but that can help you really get clear on what is coming to you and what needs to be understood and integrated. Observe your immediate environment. Oh yes, and do not overthink things, right? Try not to analyze and constantly being in thought. Oh, the sky is blue, the grass is green, that person got their mail, the dog is walking, right? These are distractions that keep us from the other more important information. So when we can quiet the mind and become the observer of the mind, there's a separation that happens, the thinking mind versus the observing mind. The observing mind is higher. It is quieter, it is more peaceful, it is wiser. And so when we can step out of the thinking mind and become the observer, that opens up a whole new world in so many ways, from a mental perspective, an emotional perspective, a physical perspective. The benefits are endless there. So become the observer. Pay attention to your dreams. Oftentimes dreams can just be the subconscious processing your daily life, but other times they can be informative about what we need to address and let go of, as well as things that may be coming to us to be aware of in the future. Do not attach to negative emotions. Remembering depression, anxiety, fear, all of these negative lower vibrations, lower emotions, they block your intuition. They completely cut you off from God's source, your higher self, any any higher form of love, joy, peace, freedom, and any guidance about how you need to conduct your life or the next steps you need to take. So really make a strong effort to address whatever is causing those issues. We're not spiritually bypassing here. We're going to go through them, but we're going to get rid of them so that they can get out of the way. Pull the weed, right? And then get physical. Move your body, move your energy. Movement, flow keeps the energy and the information coming. So that is all I have for you today. I'm sending you so much love. I hope this was helpful. I would love to hear from you, what you love, what you don't love, what you'd like to see more of. I am here for you, and I love to connect with you. So keep in touch. Let me know how you're doing, and I'm sending you so much love. Namaste, my friends.